Welcome, my dear students. Welcome to the world of zoology. And myself, Dr. Sai from Zoology Wala. My dear future medicos, today we are going to see what is a lymph, a very important topic in the examination point of view and also to survive the body. Without lymph, we can't lead a healthy life. In order to lead a healthy life, definitely lymph is very much important fluid required for the body. And what is the lymph? We'll discuss it. For example, if you observe the body, inside the body number of blood vessels are present. Imagine this is an artery which divides into number of arterioles, and the arterioles in turn divides to form number of capillaries like this. So these arteries which divides to form arterioles, divides to form capillaries, and again they combine to form venules, and then finally a vein. And these are venules, and the venules combine to form veins. Okay, let me fuse all this. Why? Because inside the body closed circulation is there, isn't it? So this is artery. Let me write here as an artery which divides to form arteriole, and this one as capillary, capillaries plural, and venules combine to form vein. Like that, there is a prescribed closed circulatory system is seen in case of higher developed chordates or vertebrates, or let me concise in human beings. This is the course of circulation. But here what happens to this lymph and where it forms, what is the actual site of the formation of lymph, and in fact what is the difference between blood and lymph? Blood is nothing but a fluid connective tissue inside the body, then lymph is also a fluid connective tissue inside the body. Then what is the difference between these two fluids and where the lymph generally forms? See here, when blood passes through the different types of diameters of these vessels, what happens, when it reaches to the capillary, when blood passes through this artery, it reaches to arteriole and then it enters into the capillary. The diameter of capillary will be very less. As the diameter of capillary is very less, pressure will be definitely high. So some fluid will filters out from these capillaries into the nearby tissues. So this is the fluid which is just coming out from the capillary and it enters into the surrounding tissue. And here, these are all the cells which are present in the body. Here you can see the number of the cells. See, imagine this is one cell, another cell, another cell, another cell. Like that, number of cells are present inside the body, isn't it? And the fluid which comes out from this capillary contains a number of components like oxygen is present, nutrients are present, oxygen, nutrients, like that number of components are present, and even essential components are all present here in the fluid which is coming out from this capillary. And you may ask me how or why the fluid comes out from the capillary. There is a reason. There are three types of capillaries are present in the human being body. The first type of capillary is entire capillary, E-N-T-I-R-E, entire capillary. And now my intention is not to explain types of capillaries, but just to have an idea. I am saying entire capillary, fenestrated capillary, and third one is sinusoidal capillary, S-I-N-U-S-O-I-D-A-L, sinusoidal capillary. Like that, three types of capillaries are present in the human being body. The first one is entire capillary. It means the capillary is very thin. And in the fenestrated capillary, small, imagine this one as a capillary, and here the small pores, the small apertures are present over the wall of capillary. So this is fenestrated capillary, something like the capillary what we will say the Bowman's capsule. And sinusoidal capillary, and imagine this one as a capillary, and here what happens, here large openings are present. So you can see the large openings over the wall of the capillary, and that is sinusoidal capillary. Large openings are present, and here the small openings are present, and in the entire capillary no openings are present, just the wall of the capillary will be like that, it will be very thin. Generally, if you observe the wall of the blood vessel, it contains three layers. Tunica externa is the outermost layer, tunica externa is an outermost layer, and tunica media is the middle layer, and tunica interna or tunica intima, Tunica, tunica is nothing but the outer layer covering. So tunica externa is an outer layer, tunica media is the middle layer, tunica interna is the innermost layer. In case of capillary, these two layers are not seen. Tunica externa and tunica media are not seen, only tunica interna is present. That is the reason why the capillaries are very thin walled when compared with the artery and arterioles. Okay, so as the capillaries contains only single layer, tunica interna, which is made with the squamous epithelium. So the squamous epithelial cells which are present there is called endothelium. So innermost layer of the capillary is called endothelium. It is single layer. Okay, that's the reason why the capillary is very thin walled. That is the reason why the diffusion of the nutrients and substances and gases are also possible from this capillary network into the surrounding environment. And now the fluid which filtered out from the capillary which reaches to the tissues, and now the fluid which is present in tissues is called tissue fluid. The fluid which is present in tissues is called tissue fluid. And so I am going to rub this. Why? Because our intention is not to describe the types of capillaries and all these things, but why I explained, in order to describe the nature of the tunica interna, nature of the capillary. Okay, and now, so if you observe this particular region, the capillary, the fluid which comes out from this capillary, now it is present in tissues. It is called, the fluid which is present here, this fluid which is present here is tissue fluid. Why? Because it is present in tissues. And this tissue fluid is also called interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid. Okay, not required. Tissue fluid which is also called interstitial. Why? Because it is present between the cells. So nothing wrong in it. You can write it also. As already I have written, interstitial fluid. Interstitial, interstitial fluid, which is also called tissue fluid. And now this fluid contains the number of nutrients, as I said. Exchange of gases between the cells and this fluid connective tissue always takes place through this fluid. Oxygen, blood contains oxygen, and number of nutrients are also present, and the cells require so many nutrients also. So whatever the requirement for the cell will be fulfilled through this fluid which came out from this capillary. And now the point is, definitely there will be a pressure at the arteries, and there will be a pressure inside the arterioles, and similarly there will be a pressure at the venules and veins also. The pressure which is there at the arteries is called arteriolar pressure. Arteriolar pressure. A-R-T-E-R-I-O-L-A-R. Arteriolar pressure. And this arteriolar pressure is nothing but the hydrostatic pressure. Hydro, H-Y-D-R-O, hydrostatic pressure. So the hydrostatic pressure which is present at one end, and at the venules also there will be a pressure, and here in the venules the pressure is there called osmotic pressure. I mean to say there will be a pressure here and there will be a pressure here also. And now when the fluid comes out, please listen very carefully. Here comes the actual point. If you observe the wall inside the capillary, if you observe, see here, these are all the squamous epithelial cells. These are the squamous epithelial cells. Let me put the only capillary. Let me put the capillary here. Imagine this one as the capillary. This one as the capillary. And now let me show you the cells. See here, these are the squamous epithelial cells. Especially in the capillary, the squamous epithelial cells are overlapped. The cells are overlapped one over other. As a result of this, what happens? Please listen carefully. The fluid which is present here, when more and more fluid is coming out from this capillary, obviously the fluid which is present in the tissue will increases. So when more and more pressure is there at the tissues, what happens? It exerts the greatest pressure. See now, the fluid came out from this capillary, isn't it? So now this is the fluid, and this is the fluid which is present here. Okay, now the fluid which is present here, it exerts the greatest pressure. It exerts greatest pressure over the capillary. So because of that pressure also, some fluid again enters into the venules. Some fluid came out and some fluid will enter. Per day, on an average, imagine 20 liters of the fluid will come out, and in that 20 liters, almost 70 liters of the fluid again will enter. But the problem comes with the remaining thing. That is not the actual problem, but that is one of the solution for healthiness of human being. You know, the fluid which comes out from the capillary will present inside the tissues, and about 3 liters of the fluid will remain inside the tissue per day. If the tissue fluid present like that, what happens? It causes a increase of the diameter of the tissue. I mean to say, it causes the edema. Swelling of the tissue will take place if the fluid will remain like that, or if the fluid remains there itself. So the fluid which is present in the tissue should again enter into the blood at any cost, isn't it? The fluid, but here, because of the pressure variations, almost 80 to 85% of the fluid entered into the venule, but the problem comes with the 10 to 15% of the fluid which is present inside the tissue. Who is going to take that 10 to 15% of the tissue fluid again into the blood? Remember, what is the target? Fluid came out from the capillaries. Why the fluid will came out? Why? Because in order to give oxygen, in order to give nutrients, in order to supply whatever the requirements for the cell, in order to give all those to the cells, the fluid came out. And I told you that how it came out. It came out because of the diffusion process. The capillaries are very thin walled, and if at all small pores are present, definitely small proteins will come out from the capillary into the tissues, but not the large proteins. Large proteins like RBC, it will not come out. Only small proteins like RBC will come out. Small proteins, unlike RBC, only will come out. Large proteins will not filter out from these capillaries into the surrounding environment. And if you observe the platelets are also not seen inside the lymph. Okay, WBC, like lymphocytes are present in here, lymphocytes are present in the capillaries, and those lymphocytes will come out from the capillaries into the tissue fluid. You may ask me, the shape of WBC is also very large. If RBC cannot come out, how the WBC is going to come out? Say WBC may even enter into these narrow spaces and may come out from these capillaries also. And the movement of WBC into the narrow spaces, by just changing their shape, just changing their position, by streaming of cytoplasm, what happens, something like the temporary extensions of the pseudopodia, temporary extensions of the protoplasm, something like in amoeba. So cell also shows the movement, streaming. So the cell shape, imagine this is the cell shape which is present inside the blood vessel. And now the streaming of cytoplasm, the cell will become elongated. Previously the cell is like this, and now the cell shape became like this. So previously this is the cell shape, and now see the cell shape. It became like that. So by changing the shape of the cell, it enters into the narrow spaces also, and is called diapedicis. And right here, diapedicis. Okay, WBC will comes out from the capillary. WBC comes out from the capillary. Okay, and now the point here. So here 85% of the fluid is already present here, and that 85% of the fluid already entered into the venule. But here, what about that 15% of the fluid? And now, see here, I am going to erase all this. Let us see who is going to take that 15% of the fluid which is present in the tissue. There is a special capillary network. You can see a special capillary network. I will show you that. Say this one. Say this one. Like this. Imagine these are all the capillaries. Here I have represented only 2 capillaries. So these are the capillaries. See here, the capillaries are closed here. Basically 2 types of capillaries are seen based on the opening or closing. Here the capillaries are open. That is the reason why the circulation is closed. But here the capillaries are closed. So this is closed capillary. And now this 15% of the fluid will enter into this lymph capillary. The lymph capillary. And now as this 15% enters into this lymph capillary, and now the tissue fluid which is present in the lymph capillary is called lymph. If the same fluid present inside the wall of the blood vessel, or if it is present inside the blood vessel, we are going to call it as a blood. If it is present in the tissues, we are going to call it as a tissue fluid. If the same fluid enters into the lymph, we are going to call, if it is going to enter into the lymph capillaries, we are going to call it as a lymph. Like that, based on the location, the name of the fluid and the composition of the fluid will changes. If it is present inside the brain, it is cerebrospinal fluid. If it is present outside the lungs, pleural fluid. If it is present outside the heart, pericardial fluid. If it is present at the joints, synovial fluid. Like that, based on its location, the name will changes and composition also will changes. And now the same 15% of the fluid, if it is present in tissues, we are going to call it as a tissue fluid. And if the same 15% of the fluid, if it enters into the lymph capillaries, we are going to call it as lymph. And now that 15% of the fluid enters into these lymph capillaries, and now these are called lymph vessels. Lymph vessels. And now they also even passes out through kidney-shaped structures. And what are these? These are called lymph node. So this is a lymph node, which is obviously on outside covered by connective tissue. And now these are called lymph nodes. Very important structures in the body. These lymph nodes are present throughout the body, but especially they are concentrated, they are more present at some places. If they are present here, they are called cervical lymph nodes. If they are present in the here armpit region, they are called axillary lymph nodes. If they are present in the mediastinum, they are called mediastinal lymph nodes. If they are present in the abdomen, abdominal lymph nodes. Intestinal lymph nodes. If they are present in the inguinal, inner parts of thigh, they are called inguinal lymph nodes. Like that, different types of lymph nodes are present, and these lymph nodes are more concentrated at these areas, as just now I told. So these lymph nodes are nothing but the areas where the antigens will be trapped. And now I will explain the function of these lymph nodes and everything under immunology. But now our concept is what is the lymph. So now the 15% of the fluid enters in the lymph capillaries, it passes through the lymph vessels, and then gradually it passes even through these lymph nodes also. Like that, 15% of the fluid which is present in all the tissues will be collected by these lymph capillaries, gradually merges to form lymph vessel, passes through these lymph nodes also, and all these lymph vessels combine to form lymphatic duct. You can see one lymphatic duct here. Here I have represented one lymphatic duct. My dear friends, please remember this one as human being body, imagine. And now here, from the right upper parts, imagine this one has a right and this one has a left. From the right upper portions and from the right lateral portions, I mean to say right cephalic region, right shoulder, right lung, right heart, right thoracic region. So from all these portions, lymph is collected by one lymphatic duct. Here, this is called right lymphatic duct. This one is, I will represent here. This green color one, this is called right lymphatic, LYMPHATIC. This is right lymphatic duct. And this one is left lymphatic duct. This one is called left lymphatic duct. What is this left lymphatic duct? I will tell. First of all, let us see what is right lymphatic duct. So lymph from the anterior portions and side portions, just now I told. From these areas, lymph is collected by right lymphatic duct. Similarly, from the rest of the left portion, left anterior portion, means left cephalic region, left cervical, left shoulder, and then left thoracic region, left lung, left part of the heart. From all those portions, lymph is collected by this left lymphatic duct. And even from the right lower portions and the left lower portions also, lymph is collected by lymph ducts. Okay, and lymph ducts are formed because of merging of all the lymph vessels. So from all the lower right and left lower parts, lymph has been collected. You can see the green color channels here. Please see the green color channels here like this. And of course here also lymph nodes are present. The dots are nothing but the lymph nodes. These are present throughout the body. So something like the wiring, something like the network, like that number of networks are present. All these are merged to form one sac in the abdominal region. Listen very carefully. From the right lower and the left lower also, all that 15% of fluid is collected and opens into the sac. Imagine now my face is a sac, and this is called cisterna chyli. And the cisterna chyli, from the cisterna chyli, there arises a duct, and this duct is called thoracic duct, which is nothing but the left lymphatic duct. And this is here I have written left lymphatic duct, which is also called thoracic duct, and in fact this is a very large duct, thoracic duct. If you observe this lymphatic duct, here I have represented some sort of constriction, something like segments of earthworm. Here I have represented some constrictions. What are those constrictions? I will tell. Those constrictions are nothing but the foldings, the beaded appearance. The constrictions are nothing but the valves which are present inside the lymph vessels. You know, generally arteries will supply blood to all parts of the body, and veins will collect blood from all parts of the body. But if you observe the veins, you know, inside the veins, here the valves are present like this. Here the valves are present like this, which allow the flow of blood in one direction. Why? Because veins should carry the blood against the gravity towards the heart. So there is a chance of having the backward flow of blood. So in order to prevent the backward flow of blood, the valves are present here, which allow the flow of blood in one direction. Similarly here also, in order to make the lymph to flow in one direction, inside the lymph vessels also, here the valves are present. So the valves are nothing but the inward foldings of the endothelium. They are like that. Like walls are present throughout. Because of having perfectly developed valves, some sort of beaded appearance is also observed. And there is another point also you have to remember. If you observe the lymph vessel, inside the lymph vessel, here, squamous epithelial cells are present here. Let me represent you. Imagine this is also a lymph vessel. And here the squamous epithelial cells are present, which are very severely overlapped like this. So now, please listen carefully. When more and more fluid comes out and enters into the tissue, what happens? You know, pressure outside this lymph capillary increases. When pressure outside the lymph capillary increases, when pressure here outside the lymph capillary increases, outside is visible, yes. When pressure outside the lymph capillary is increasing, you know what happens when pressure is increasing? Imagine this is one squamous epithelial cell and this is another squamous epithelial cell. So when pressure outside the lymph capillary increases, and now there causes the opening of or there exerts some space between these two cells. So there you can see a small hole, or there is a chance of having the passage of the fluid which is present outside into the lymph capillary. This is one of the reasons how the fluid enters into the lymph capillary, because of having more and more pressure. So as more and more fluid comes out, it causes the pressure over the lymph capillary, and now the valves inside the lymph capillary, here the cells are present like this. When outside the pressure is more, what happens? You know, it will be opened, and now the fluid present outside will enter into the lymph capillary, and now the fluid, if increases inside the lymph capillary, if more and more fluid increases inside the lymph capillary, what happens? If fluid pressure is more inside, then it causes the closing of the lymph capillary wall. Please see here. Imagine this is the wall, and if more pressure is here, what happens? Because of that more pressure, here the fluid will rushes in. If more fluid present inside the lymph capillary, and now this pore will be closed, the hole will be closed. So if more pressure is present outside, it causes the opening of the wall of lymph capillary, so the fluid will rushes inside, and now inside the lymph capillary pressure increases, which causes the closing of this opening. So the cells will be overlapped in case of walls of the capillary. This is one of the reasons how the fluid will comfortably enters into the lymph capillary. And now the fluid from right lower, left lower is collected and ultimately drains into the cisterna chyli. Similarly, if you observe the cisterna chyli, from the cisterna chyli there arises a large duct, and this is called lymphatic duct, which is left lymphatic duct. As it is arising from cisterna chyli, it is also called chyliferous duct. It is also called chyliferous duct. Chyliferous. Chyliferous duct is the duct which arises from the cisterna chyli, and now this chyliferous duct, like this, it passes anteriorly, and now it takes a diversion like that, and now it goes like that. And this cisterna chyli is nothing but the abdominal sac, and is receiving the lymph from different parts of the body. The 15% of the fluid from left lower and right lower is collected by the cisterna chyli, and ultimately, what is the target? The 15% of the fluid which came out from the capillaries ultimately should enter into the blood. So this is our target. What is our target? Where you are to which place you are traveling? You are traveling in the body, and what is our target? You have to dump that 15% of the fluid again into the blood. See now this thoracic duct, it merges at the junction of left internal jugular and subclavian. Imagine now, okay, this one, like this. So what is this one? Imagine this is external jugular vein and this is internal jugular, J-U-G-U-L-A-R, jugular vein, and this is subclavian vein, shoulder. Similarly, this is external jugular, internal jugular, and this is subclavian vein. And now this is left one and this is right side. And now what happens is, imagine this marker as thoracic duct or lymphatic duct. And now this lymphatic duct will go and joins here at the junction of these three fingers. Or let me concise this one. This is jugular and this is subclavian. At the junction of these two fingers, the pen is present. Similarly, at the junction of internal jugular and subclavian, there this thoracic duct will open. Similarly, just now I told, lymph from right upper and right shoulder and right part of the thorax is collected and ultimately dumped at the junction of left internal jugular and left subclavian. Like that, lymph from all the different parts is collected again by these lymphatic ducts and ultimately drain into the blood. Now what is the target? Please listen carefully. The fluid which came out contains so many nutrients and oxygen, and all these necessary compounds which are required for the cell was given. And cells in turn will give different types of waste materials. I told you that if pressure outside the tissues is more, something like even bacteria are present, virus may be present, fungal compounds may be present, all those even enters into this 15% of fluid, all these enters into this lymph capillary. And lymph nodes are the places where T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes are present. So T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes, very important immune cells. So now these T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes which are present in the lymph nodes, if at all they receive any bacteria, virus or fungus in its pathway, please listen carefully. Now the bacteria, virus, waste materials, what the cells given, all these enters into this 15% of the fluid. See, cells have received the components and unnecessary and waste compounds are given to this lymph capillary, and the lymph capillary is doing the postman duty, and now it receives all the compounds what the cells are giving, and bacteria, virus, fungal compounds, if at all any present, they will be killed by these T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes generally. Some of the compounds may be left unkilled also, some of the compounds may be even living state also, but whatever it may be. So all these essential components and non-essential components and 15% of the fluid is passing, ultimately given to the blood. So all the waste materials, the lymph is the fluid which was received from the tissues and again given to the blood. So it gives blood, it gives all the compounds what the cells have given to it to the blood. So cells have given carbon dioxide will be given to blood. Cells have given the waste materials, blood, all these waste materials are given again to the blood. In its pathway, it has collected so many bacteria, virus, all those were also given to the blood. And so many T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes are produced here. Those T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes will kill the bacteria and all the antigens, and all those dead components, T lymphocytes, B lymphocytes were also again given to the blood. In addition to that, 15% of the water, that is very much important. That 15% of water, earlier what the blood has given, that 15% of water was also again given to the blood. That's how the task of the lymph will be over. A very important point, in order to pump the blood, heart is there. But who is going to pump blood? Of course, heart is there. But who is going to pump the lymph in the body? Nobody is there to pump the lymph in the body. So you have to create pressure. You have to create some sort of pressure. Muscular pressure should be created. Then only the lymph will move. If you are always keeping static in your position, if you are not moving, lymph also will not move. So you have to perform the physical exercise. That is the reason why you are performing walking, running, jogging, and various types of physical exercises. All these are just to make lymph to circulate in the body. See, the lymph is something like a van in order to collect the waste materials, there is a van which is wandering on the roads in order to collect the waste materials. So if the van won't move on the roads, it can't collect the waste materials. Similarly, lymph, if you are not able to show some sort of physical exercise, lymph will not move. So if lymph is continuously circulating, it collects all the waste materials. Come on, cell, give the carbon dioxide, give the waste material, give the bacteria, give the virus, give the fungus. All the compounds will be collected, and if it is possible for it, it will kill because of T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. If it is not possible, ultimately all these compounds will be given to the blood. Though it is possible, it is not possible. Definitely it has to give to the blood. Why? Because lymph should be always in the flowing mode. If the lymph is always flowing, then only it will be very healthy. So in order to make your lymph to flow, you have to do physical exercise. That is the ultimate point you have to remember. And what is the role of this lymph node? That I will explain under immunology. It's all about this immune system, a part of lymph. So lymph is a very important part of immune system. I will explain rest of the lymph aspects in immunology. That's all about this video. Thank you.